Hey, what's up, Superdads? Coming to you loud and clear, hopefully. Got myself a new mic after I read some comments about my audio quality, so hopefully you can tell the difference. I'm trying to invest in this channel and make the content better in any way that I can. So today, I want to talk to you about who you should be getting your exercise advice from. And the answer is me. Video done. No, no, that's not true. The answer is probably not me for maybe many of you, and certainly for most people, the answer would not be me. But we're going to go through a quick checklist here of things to look out for. And none of these are sort of deal-breaking things. If the guy that you love to get your information from, checks one of these boxes, doesn't mean you should just give up on that person. But you should consider these sort of warning flags, or not red, because red flag means give up on it, but perhaps yellow flag or something like that. Anyway, let's get into it. So, long story short, 20,000 foot summary. Look for people who are similar to you, but slightly more advanced, have made slightly more progress. Specifics. Start with, are they enhanced? If you're not enhanced and you're getting your exercise information from people who are enhanced biochemically, then you're probably not getting very good information. Now, if you are enhanced, then those are the people you should be listening to. But you probably don't need a whole lot of advice if you're, shooting a bunch of tren before your workouts, because anything will work for you. But if you're not enhanced, now this is, again, not to say that there aren't some enhanced influencers, information sources out there that don't provide good information to people who are naturals. And, if they've trained naturals with great success in the past, then, maybe you can discount this, but keep it in mind. Next, genetics. Genetics are pretty much just as important as whether or not they're enhanced. Because some people have the genetics of a person who is enhanced. If they're an extreme in terms of their genetics, if they put on muscle quickly, if they can work out 6 days a week and not get overtrained, and they just keep growing muscle, they're probably not average genetics. And hate to break it to you, just the way that statistics break down, you are probably average or below. There is a huge probability that you are average or below. So on the opposite side, and this is one reason why social media is such a calamity, is you would probably be better served by getting information from the person with terrible muscle building genetics who's made a little bit of progress, because if it's worked for them, it'll probably work for you. And the same can't be said about the super freak at the other end of the spectrum. But nobody clicks on videos where the guy's like, after a year of trying, I finally gained a pound of muscle. I'm such a hard gainer. That's just not sexy. Injuries. Does this person regularly get injured? Or do they have a history of being regularly injured? Now, I will come completely clean and say I absolutely have a history of injuring myself and doing stupid stuff when it comes to exercise. But I've tried over the last year and a half or so to rectify that, and I've done it successfully. And so that might be a feather in my cap. You could look at it that way. But if the person you're getting your information from is tearing hamstrings and they've got shoulder problems and all this other stuff, then maybe it's the training that's doing it to them. And unless you also want to have those, right, if you use the same recipe, you're going to get the same result to some degree, right? You might not get the same muscle building effect that they do, but in terms of injuries, it's highly likely you would get the same ones, unless you're a genetic freak when it comes to your resistance to injury. Okay, next. Does the person intentionally obfuscate? And it's funny that I use that phrase. It's funny to me, at least, because it's a bit ironic. The phrase intentionally obfuscate makes it sound much more complicated. But all I mean is, do they make concepts more difficult to understand or less difficult to understand? Can they explain things in a way that resonates for you, where you're like, oh, okay, I get it, yeah. Or are they constantly throwing jargon at you and making things do you get more confused listening to them? And if that's the case, the chances are that, one, their advice is not something that you're going to be able to understand and apply to begin with. But second, the chances are that they don't even understand it all that well themselves. Very often, the less somebody understands something, the more difficult they will make it sound when they're explaining it, because they don't want to be exposed for their lack of understanding, and so they're trying to smokescreen so that you can't tell. Kind of connected to this is something that I call science reliance. Science reliance are those people who have to cite a study for every single thing that they say. And look, there's nothing wrong with science. I have a PhD, not in exercise or anything related to exercise, but suffice to say, I've read plenty of research papers. I've written plenty of research papers. Science is a crucial endeavor for humankind to engage in. But the issue with science when it comes to your individual application is the way science works is by stripping out all of the context and limiting the experiment down to a single variable, if possible, comparing a single variable to the lack of that variable. And that is just not a model that applies to your life necessarily. As soon as you start throwing in contextual elements like the kids didn't sleep very well last night because they're sick, so I didn't get enough sleep, but the science paper says that I should be doing this many sets and this many reps in order to get the best benefit. Yeah, but the science paper, the context was completely different, and so the prescription would also be completely different. So if the person you're following is just constantly throwing citation after citation, and in this study they gained, an extra 1.2% muscle, just you don't want somebody who is knowledgeable. You want somebody who has wisdom when it comes to exercise. And wisdom comes from taking knowledge, connecting it into understanding, which is like a web of knowledge where there are, everything is connected and you see the roles that they play, and then applying that web of knowledge, which is understanding, applying that in real life and iterating on it, which is wisdom, the actual application. So don't just listen to knowledgeable sources, because often they're going to lack understanding and wisdom. Next, the people that we should listen to are the people who use qualifiers, which means if they speak in absolutes, if they say never do this, always do this, this is the right way, that's the wrong way, they're probably not a great source of information because they lack wisdom, they lack understanding. They're speaking from a place probably of ego. Now, this is going to be less satisfying for you as an information seeker, as somebody who's trying to understand better, because you're going to want the answer to a question. And the best answer from the best sources is going to almost always be, it depends. It depends. It depends on you, your context, your goals. It depends on your history. It depends should be the start of almost anybody's answer to your question if they know what they're talking about. Next, length of training tenure. If you're looking at somebody who's only been training for a couple of years and they've gotten great results in a couple of years, they're probably enhanced and or a genetic outlier. In either case, it might not be a good idea to listen to them. But also, you're going to be wanting to look to see if this person is engaging with exercise in a way that is sustainable. Because building muscle, for those of us who aren't enhanced or who aren't genetic outliers, building muscle is a game that is played in years, if not decades. It takes a very long time. Very long time. And so if you're looking at somebody who's only been playing the game for maybe 2 rounds would be like a couple of years, right? 2 rounds or 2 innings or something like that. They don't have a sense of the whole game, and there's no indication whether or not the way that they're approaching things is going to cause injury later on, is going to be sustainable for them. And I would recommend you look for a sustainable approach, because you don't want to do this in fits and spurts. You'll never get anywhere. Okay, next. Similarity of lifestyle, and a few things go into this. Goals. Do they have the similar goals? If your goal is to build a bunch of muscle, you shouldn't be listening to a power lifter. But if your goal is to increase your bench, you shouldn't be listening to bodybuilders. And if your goal is to just be a healthy human being who's confident in the way they look and strong enough to be useful, then you shouldn't be listening to either one of those people because the goals are so different. And if the goal is different, then the means to achieve that goal will also be different. There is nothing, in the words of Peter Drucker, the great management thinker, there is nothing less effective than doing the wrong thing efficiently. So if you follow great advice, but it's great for a goal that's not yours, you are essentially running in the wrong direction faster. You don't want to do that. So make sure your goals are aligned with your information source. Job. Does the person have a job that doesn't involve them videotaping, God, I'm old, that doesn't involve them making videos of their workouts? Because if they don't, then are you that person? Is your only job recording your workouts and talking about them and stuff? This isn't my job. This is just something I do. I have lots of other jobs that are real jobs. So if you have a job that has demands and causes stress and is your priority, then you shouldn't be listening to somebody necessarily whose only thing that they do, whose source of income comes from them just spending a ton of time in the gym. Kids. If you are a parent, especially of young kids, there is no, probably not a good reason to be listening to somebody who is not in a similar situation. Because, man, kids are great. They're a wonderful source of meaning and joy in your life, and nothing you do will ever be as important to you as being a parent if you have kids. And having said that, they are a huge source of stress, financial drain, and they mess with your sleep, especially when they're young. They get sick all the time, they're coughing at night, all this kind of jazz. The financial drain, right? If someone's saying you need to be going to, the gym that has these kind of equipment and you got to be taking these supplements and stuff, and you're like, but, I got to pay for my kid's school, right? Just, you can probably ignore that guy. And also there's the diet thing, man. If you have young kids, your diet probably consists of cheese and white starches, much more than they would if you were like a bachelor who had lots of money to spend on grass-fed steak and organic, whatevers. Like, my kids aren't gonna eat that. I gotta be making food. I can't make two dinners, right? I can't make my dinner and their dinner. We make one dinner. We only have so much time, and so. Again, things like diet and sleep, man, it just changes everything completely. So look for someone if you're a parent with kids, you want somebody who's either been through that or who is there. Age, yes, so obvious, but we often overlook that because a lot of the young people, they look great, right? They got all of this advice that we didn't have when we were younger, and they're probably on TRT despite the fact that they're only 25 years old, and they get these great gains. But look, as you age, it's not that the way that muscle is built changes, but the way that you can productively engage in muscle building for the long term will change as you get old. And so you really should be looking for somebody who's closer to your age range. And finally, there's body type. If you're a short, squat person who puts on fat easily and you're looking to trim that away and keep the muscle, then look for somebody who's similar to you. If you're tall and lanky and a hard gainer with a wiry physique, look for somebody who has also struggled to put on muscle. Not for somebody who's, constantly going on about cutting and all that kind of stuff. So really, this is so crucial. And also in terms of not just like, diet and those sorts of things, but, the more easily you put on fat, if you tend to be more like the endomorph, not that these really are scientifically backed concepts, but an endomorph body style where you put on fat but also muscle easily, then maybe more volume would work better for you because your body seems to respond more quickly to these sorts of things. Whereas if you tend to really struggle to put on either fat or muscle, at least in my opinion, a higher intensity, lower frequency works because your body burns, your metabolism is so jacked up already. If you're throwing a ton of frequency and volume at it, you are just burning through calories like crazy, and your body's not going to be able to it's not going to have the building blocks. This is just one example, but there's another. Like, what about exercise selection? Short, squat, powerful people tend to benefit more from doing things like squats, and they're going to tell you that everyone needs to squat. But the taller you get, the longer your torso is, the more risk there is of you injuring your low back from doing things like back squats. And so whether it's exercise selection or diet or frequency, a lot of that changes with body type. So look for somebody who's got a similar body type as you. Okay, and then the final thing is you really want to look for somebody who is a few steps ahead of you on this journey. Somebody who is just a little bit more advanced. Somebody who has essentially dealt with, effectively overcome the challenge that you are facing now in the somewhat recent history. Because there's something called a expert beginner gap, where it's very difficult for experts to teach beginners because the experts forget all of the things that they didn't know when they were beginners. And so they will try to teach somebody who is, an intermediate at level because they can't remember what it was like to be a beginner. And a lot of that goes as well for this sort of exercise stuff. Each stage of your exercise journey is going to have its own characteristic challenges. And if you can find somebody who not too long ago dealt with that challenge effectively, that's going to be the best source of information in terms of how you can deal with that that challenge. Okay, so let me wrap this up by saying a lot of people shouldn't listen to me, right? Most people shouldn't listen to me. If you're short and you put on fat easily, and you're 25 years old and you're on TRT and you like hanging out in the gym because you like spending time with your friends and talking to chicks there, then I am probably the worst person to listen to for exercise advice. But, likewise, if you have a lot of similarities with me, then maybe it would be good. So the answer is not me for many of you and most of you. But if my goals align with yours, if my lifestyle is similar to yours, if my body type and my history, these sorts of things align, okay, then now you can feel what? You can feel more assured, feel more confident that source of information, whether it's me or someone else, is someone that you should be getting advice from. Okay? Thanks so much for watching. You got a bunch of programs down in the description. There's the free program, 3-Minute Muscle. It's been getting a bunch of good reviews recently, so I'm happy about that. Then there's the Synergy Strength Home Bodyweight workout and the Dumbbell workout, which I just finished. Both of those are available for pretty cheap on Udemy, and I really appreciate you watching, tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.